Midsummer Night's Dream. We're back to the comedies and romantic comedies. And we're still in the 1590s or the mid 1590s. Midsummer Night's Dream has had a much greater impact than the Comedy of Errors. However, it's become one of Shakespeare's most magical, stunning plays, and filled with all sorts of connections to spirituality, to religion, and to theater itself. In fact, the play offers a rather stunning commentary on the art of theater, which we'll talk about. But let me dive right in at the beginning. The play opens with a familiar, what should be now familiar, gesture for us in terms of comedy. That is, we've got someone in a very tragic circumstance. Remember the trajectory of comedy, which is it starts out with someone in a tragic circumstance, and then the main participants move somewhere strange, very often to the forest. Here it is, into the forest, where those problems are ultimately resolved. And then the play ends with a resolution of some kind, a resolution that often involves marriage or at least couplings of some kind. And that symbolic, those marriages are more than just about an individual couple. Those marriages are symbolic of the possibility of a whole community to come together in some way. But this play begins not with a GN, but with a GS, a father who is frustrated with his daughter because she is choosing a spouse that he does not like. He was under the impression that his daughter was going to marry Demetrius, but she has moved on to Lysander, and he has come to the magistrates, Theseus and Hippolyta of this locale, for some resolution, and rather drastic resolution. He says, if she doesn't marry who I want, I have the right to have her killed. This is Act 1, Scene 1, lines 40. I beg the ancient privilege of Athens, as she is mine, I may dispose of her, which shall be either to this gentleman or to her death, according to our law, immediately provided in that case. Here again, we have this bind of the law. And Theseus and Hippolyta are really in no mood to enforce strictly that law. Again, the play actually opens with them discussing their marriage day, so they're not in the mood for something that's sort of ugly or difficult to take place on the day of their marriage. But nonetheless, the law has a certain purchase, as it did with the Duke of Ephesus. That is, if Theseus ignores the law here, even though he might want to, because Aegeus's father is acting in an extreme fashion, he will delegitimize the law of Athens, and he can't do that. So instead, he turns in a sort of questioning way to Helena to try to ameliorate this in some way. So, what's going on? And he says, what say you, Hermia? Be advised, fair maid, to you your father should be as God, one that composed your beauties. Yes, and one to whom you are but as a form in wax, by him imprinted as within his power to leave the figure or disfigure it. Again, we have that great hierarchy, that great chain of being, where here the father of the daughter is like God to man. And he says, Demetrius is a worthy gentleman. And Demetrius, of course, is standing right there on stage. And Hermia's response is perfectly realistic. She says, so is Lysander. And Shakespeare immediately sets up what he's going to do. Remember the two sets of twins in Comedy of Errors. Here we've got Lysander and Demetrius. And while these aren't twins, these are two guys of roughly the same age, of roughly the same social class, and the same woman, or the same two women, have fallen in love with both, which is to say, chances are these guys are pretty much alike, right? These guys are pretty much alike. And this is what Hermia points out. He says, both these guys are the same. Nonetheless, Theseus presses her. He says, in himself he is, sure, Lysander's fine, but in this kind, wanting your father's voice, the other must be held the worthier. And Hermia says, I would my father look with but my eyes. Rather, your eyes must with his judgment look, responds Theseus. And then he gets even more specific. He tells her a few lines down, this is line 67, I guess. He says, Hermia, take a moment and question your desires. And what he's asking her to do on a literal level, of course, is think about this a little bit. Do you really want to inflame your father this way and have him enforce the strict penalty of the law? Isn't there an easy way around this? But on a more metaphorical level, Theseus is asking Hermia to question her desires. Where do her desires come from? And so Shakespeare is asking us via Theseus to question our desires as audience or readers too. Where do our desires come from? Why do we love what we love? Whose eyes do we look with when we love? These things, again, may seem self-evident or natural, but the entire play is going to bring into question the way in which we love and who we choose to love.